So I am going to go ahead and mute everyone here. And just if you do have anything like that you want to say or whatever, so down in the bottom, you can see where I have muted everyone. But if you want to turn off your video cameras, you can do that as well if you don't want people peering into your living room. If you want to keep it on, it doesn't matter to me. Go right ahead. If you do have any questions along the way, go ahead and use this little chat feature down at the bottom. And you can throw those in and I will answer those. I know Tammy can be monitoring those as well. So we'll go ahead and dive right in. So, really where this is coming from is we've had a lot of agents trying to figure out, how can I be, still as productive or as productive as possible in this virtual world as I was when I was actually meeting clients face to face, and especially in regards to touring, so going through houses. And secondly, we do have a lot of clients that are, a good chunk of their business comes from open houses. So they're trying to figure out how to meet people that are actively searching while they can't necessarily hold open houses and meet them face to face. And so that's really what this is about. Just to give you guys kind of a heads up, but we'll jump over here to the next slide real quick. One of the pieces of feedback that we have gotten from our clients is that, over the first few weeks of this quarantine and the shelter in place model, spending an hour to be on a webinar was something that they found a lot of value in. And what we've been hearing more recently is, hey, I've got more on my plate. I'm getting busy again. Make things more quick hitting, give us exact how-tos, and really the shorter the better. And so what we're trying to do with our presentations, or what I'm trying to do with my presentation, is shorten them up for you guys. Hopefully this will be around 30 minutes instead of an hour, but you'll still get plenty of information out of it. So for any of you that haven't met me, I know you'd mentioned that you'd been on some of my webinars previously. This is me. I work for West, which is the marketing and technology arm of Williston Financial Group and the sister company to WFG National Title. So we have an amazing company that can close all of your escrows. We have obviously Tammy's an amazing asset, for helping you guys get property information, also for doing things like her COVID-19 listing kits. Like, she's always coming up with ideas to also help you out. But that's all on the title and escrow side. I'm purely marketing and technology, working with a team of people across the country called the Nerds. That's what the little Nerds logo is. And we're always just focusing on how can we really make our clients as effective as possible, regardless of what the market cycle is, regardless of what's going on in the world. We're just always studying best practices. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be, I'll be uploading this webinar, and I will also be uploading the slides on my site, which is aarons2cents.com, but we'll go to themodernDayAgent.com/Aaron-Stelle. So you can always see the links and things that I talk about, but then also go back and actually flip through this if you want to kind of get a recap. So with that being said, the questions that we're getting are, what are virtual showings and what are open houses? And what do they look like in the current environment? And what we're seeing is there are really three different styles that we're watching our clients use in order to interact. So the first one is the individual walkthrough. This is you with a client or with you with a pair of clients. Going through and really kind of having a one-on-one conversation about a specific property. And we'll dive into kind of what that looks like and how that works. But the goal for that is not to broadcast anything out, but to be able to have a private conversation as if you're standing in the same room together. The second type is the 24/7 digital walkthrough. And what this is this is allowing people to really go through and tour a house at their leisure, whenever it's convenient for them. And that's really the goal, but also to get as much information as possible about that house without ever actually stepping foot inside of it physically. And then the last one, this is the one that's probably the most complicated, the one we're definitely getting the most questions about, is the live event. And so I'll walk you through the steps in order to actually create the live event as well. So to start off, we're going to go through and we'll talk about just a simple individual walkthrough. And as I mentioned, really the goal for this is to allow you to showcase a property, to tour a property as you normally would with your buyers, but really just having you as the agent inside that property. So you're not bringing additional exposure of having your clients there. So number one, they won't have an additional opportunity to get sick. You won't have that additional opportunity to get sick. And then third, that homeowner is going to have, in this case, let's say there were 3, there's going to be 1 person instead of 3. So there's 33% of that potential problem walking into their house. And what we're seeing with this is there are a couple of goals and the reason that we want to do this. Number one, it does reduce the exposure for both your clients, the homeowners, and actually yourselves. The one thing that we've talked about a lot throughout this process is, self-care is really the most important because, regardless of, what you want to do for your clients, if you get sick, you're not going to be able to help them out at all. So we want to make sure that we keep you as healthy as possible. And really the metaphor I really love for this is much like you have when you jump on an airplane and they're doing their little safety instructions. They always tell you, should the oxygen masks fall, make sure you place it on yourself first, then help anyone else. And that's really how I want you to think about this too, is keep yourself healthy, which allows you to keep everyone else healthy. And the other thing is this will allow you to simplify the process. And what I mean by that is now you're not having to coordinate multiple schedules. So the homeowner, the buyers, and you all needing to be on the same page. With this, you should be able to just, you and the homeowner coordinate, and then the buyers can be wherever they need to be in order to then view that property. So it should make it a little easier to get those schedules coordinated. So with that being said, we're looking at a way to keep this as simple and effective as possible. And early on, we were talking about all of these different tools and all of these different systems and things that you could use to really create this great, walkthrough experience. And what we found is the more tools and systems and pieces of software we put in place, the more complicated it got and the harder it was to actually implement. So what we've seen from a standpoint with individual walkthroughs is simpler the better. And what that is let's figure out what programs your clients already have on their phone or on their computer, and that's what we're going to use. And most of the time what we're seeing is if they're iPhone users, just use FaceTime. If they're not iPhone users or you're on multiple platforms, using Instagram video chat or Facebook video chat or potentially even Skype. But the reason we're using these platforms is this is something they already know how to use. So all you would need to do is once you get to the house, dial them up on one of these programs, and now you're having that conversation. When you start implementing in, say you're trying to bring in like a third-party camera, or you're trying to go, live, or you're trying to bring in a third-party software, even like a Zoom or something like that, which we'll dive into later. It's all something new that can make the process more difficult. So if it's an individual thing where you're going to be going room by room, showing them hardware, we're talking about the different features, we're talking about the flow of the property, we want to make it as easy as possible. And so that's why we're trying to stick with things that you're already using. Now, the other thing that we're really suggesting with this is, it's just going to be you inside that property as the broker, but also using clean showing instructions. So having that seller open up specific cabinet doors, making sure that doors inside the house are open, lights are on, blinds are open. So when you walk into that house, you don't even need to touch anything. You're just walking through, showing your client, what it is that house brings to the table, but not touching light switches, not touching doorknobs, not touching cabinet hardware, nothing like that, or no hard surfaces are even being touched, which should keep both you and that homeowner safe, but also allow you to get through that house fairly efficiently and effectively. So you can be in and out maybe 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes tops. And that's really what we're seeing people do in regards to scheduling. So the other thing that we're seeing, if you don't want to do it, or you're having a hard time getting all of the parties involved at the same time, is using a program like BombBomb. Now, the benefit of using something like BombBomb over, let's just say, FaceTime, is if you're using BombBomb, you can go through, create this whole tour where you walk through the property and talk about features and benefits, and then send it out to both clients for them to see whenever it's convenient for them, because now you're creating a recording. The detractor is if you're going through and giving the tour, you're going to focus on the things that you see and that you think are important. If the client's watching that video and has a question, by the time they've watched it, you've now left the house and you can't say, go back into a room or go answer a specific question on that specific piece of hardware or whatever the, let's say the finishes are or something along those lines. So there are benefits like being able to watch it over and over again, but there are detractors like not being able to answer specific questions. The other thing about BombBomb, and if you're not familiar with it, it's in the very simplest form, it's video email. But it is going to cost you about $100 a month. So if it's something that you're going to adopt, it's going to be something that you're going to want to really implement into all of the different facets of your business. So the way that I would suggest using this outside of just the individual tours is things like giving weekly status updates, or if you're taking somebody through a transaction, having videos that you send out for each step in the buying or the selling process to tell them where they're at and what's next. But it is a fantastic tool to be able to record video and send it out, even if it is 15 or 20 minutes long, without making it a super difficult file to either download or, a lot of times, if you have a 20-minute video, you're not going to be able to text or email that because it's just too big of a file. And so BombBomb makes that really easy. So moving on past the individual one-on-one conversations, the next thing that we're really seeing is people leveraging what we call the 24/7 virtual walkthrough. And really what this is creating a full 3D model of that house so people can walk through it anytime they'd like. And the reason you want to do this is it allows all potential buyers to see that property whenever it is convenient for them. So they can walk through every room, they can look all around, they can look up and down, and it can be 2 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon, 7 in the morning. It doesn't really matter. It's just whenever they're on their device or their computer. The other thing it allows them to do is it allows them to have a more thorough tour. And what I mean by that is you can walk all through the house, but then when you want to go back and say, look at the kitchen again, or you want to go into that second bedroom or the master bedroom, or you want to see, the sink in the master again, or whatever the walk-in closet, it doesn't really even matter. You can walk around that house as long as you want, all digitally without stepping foot inside. So having a little more thorough tour is a benefit versus say, just clicking through photos or a quick little listing video. So the tools we want to use for this, they kind of vary. Now, the standard that's been used in the industry now for about 5 years has been Matterport. And Matterport it's a fantastic technology. You get the dollhouse view up on the left where you can see in 3D kind of how the house is laid out. You can get a flat, basically floor plan as well. And then obviously you get a 3D tour where you can look up, down, side, all of the different rooms, and there's a bunch of different ways to click through. So it really is the premier premium way to create 3D models. Now, the downside to this is it's really tough to do on your own. You have to buy this camera, which is about $3,500 now, plus pay a subscription fee. And honestly, there's a decent learning curve as far as where to set the camera as you're stitching it all together. So ideally, what you're going to want to do with this is you're going to want to hire somebody who knows how to use this program, goes in there, sets it all up, does it, and then sends you the link. And usually what we're seeing is that's somewhere between $300 and $500 per listing in order to make this happen. If you need a referral, we do have a couple of companies that we refer out. We obviously do not do any Matterport videos, but there are some really good companies in the Portland market. But, like I said, this is traditionally going to be a professionally done thing versus something you do yourself. Now, on the other end of that, we actually just found a new piece of technology called AstroRoom. And what this is this is a program and a device that allows you to basically create 3D models all on your own using just your phone. And so what this does is you use your phone, you clip the little fisheye lens over your camera, and then you set this little white device that you see on the right on a tripod, and it just spins around the room. Now, they say you can create a 3D tour inside of 10 minutes. Depending on the size of the house, I would give yourself more like 20 or 30. But really all you have to do is set the device somewhere where it can see the last place you film. So basically line of sight, and you just walk room by room and do that. And it will, then you send it into them, they'll stitch it all together and then send it back. So the cool part about this is it's do it yourself. You're not buying a new camera. This Astroom equipment is, I believe it's $70. Don't quote me on that. I do need to double check on pricing. And then it's $19 a month for you to continue to upload your virtual tours on there. Now, the nice thing is we've got a promo code with them through West. So if you go to astroroom.com/events/West and use the promo code West, you get $10 off the device and you get a couple of free months. So it's actually a pretty cool, it's a pretty cool deal. I have no skin in the game, so if you don't do that, you're not going to hurt my feelings. But if it is something where you're trying to create this for all of your listings and you want to do it on more of a budget, this is the best tool we have found to make that happen. Now, the third one that we're also seeing is we did have quite a few clients that over the last few years have gone out and bought things like the Ryko Theta or some of the cameras that, you know, even like a GoPro, and have found ways to create video that is pretty much 3D. And iStaging will basically take all of that video that you've created or those images you've created, and it will go through and it will actually create another video for you. So it works similar to Astroom. It doesn't stitch everything together quite as seamlessly, but it's another great option for the do-it-yourselfer. So this would be my third option. You know, if I'm going in an order, I would probably, depending on the size of the listing, go Matterport's going to be the best, but it's going to be the most expensive. If you go to Astroom, that's going to be just a notch below as far as quality, but substantially lower price if you have the time to do it. And then iStaging would be third, because you're also going to have to do a little more work with that. Now, a pro tip if you're trying to create the 24/7 open house is what we really need to figure out is, okay, what are we going to do with this 3D tour once we have it? So the first place that I would put it is I would want it either on my website if I have a landing page for each individual property, or if you don't, then creating something like leadpages.net is it's a program where you can basically create single property websites or individual lead capture pages for each property. So I would have it living there. And the reason being is I would create sign writers. All of my advertising would have a vanity URL like, you know, 123mainstreet.com, where it would go and I would say, take a tour now at 123mainstreet.com. So they land on this page and they can now take this virtual tour before they actually ever step foot inside. Then if they call me and have questions, I can even say, you know, have you done the 3D virtual walkthrough, and are you sure it's something you're interested in to the point where you would be considering writing an offer? And if they say no, then I say, okay, well, at this point in time, our seller would prefer not to have people walking through the house that are not even considering making an offer. And that's from a safety standpoint. Now, the other thing that you can do if you want to go next level with this is you can add in something like Calendly. And what Calendly does is it allows people to schedule times to then walk through that property. So you can give them certain windows, and it doesn't have to be 24/7 access to your calendar, but you can give little windows and say, all right, I want to see this property at 3 p.m. tomorrow. Well, they can just click in there, add in their name, phone number, email, they can put in some contact information, and now they've scheduled a time to do a physical walkthrough, and you can follow up with them and say, like, have you done that 3D walkthrough first? But this becomes now a lead generation opportunity. And so taking something like leadpages.net, having a Calendly integration where they can then see a calendar and available spots to do a physical tour, basically ties all this stuff together and gives you opportunities to actually then generate more business. Now, the last one, and probably the most complicated, not even probably, the most complicated, is the live event, if you're doing this yourself. And the benefit to this is, unlike the 3D walkthrough, with a live event, now users can actually ask questions. So this can be a Q&A session. it can be much more like what it is if you had an in-person open house where people walk through the front door, they can walk through all the different rooms, come back, ask you questions about neighborhoods, schools, features, anything. I mean, anything you really need to give them, you know, on that specific property. So then you can even have one-on-one communication with people, or it can be one-to-many. And then lastly, for those of you that actually do generate leads out of open houses, this can be an opportunity to build rapport and do lead capture. And so there is a lot of benefit by doing these live open houses. So our first step that we're seeing most effectively doing this is to create a Facebook event. And I see we have a question coming in. So the statement was that if the house is vacant, having a virtual tour can show potential squatters that the home is vacant. That is correct, but if you're, if you have photos and it's showing vacant, if you have a standard listing video and it shows vacant, this isn't going to, unless you're doing virtual staging, it's not going to be any different than every other piece of marketing you do for that property. So, I mean, squatters are going to figure out if stuff's vacant kind of regardless of what technology you're using, unless you really lock down the type of information that you're showing on the property. So with that being said, the first step in setting up our live event is to create a Facebook event. So what you're going to want to do is go to your Facebook page, so your business page, not your personal profile. And there's a couple of different layouts inside of your Facebook business page, but you're either going to have 3 little dots or a menu that comes down like mine that says more, and we're going to go down to where it says events. And if you notice, that's the 4th thing down there, and that's where we're going to click. So we're going to click on the event, and just like you would with a birthday party, or just like you would, if you were creating like a barbecue or like anything that you're going to do with your friends, we're just going to create the event. And you're going to go in, and the title is going to be, live virtual open house, this date, this time. You can give a description of the property, and it's going to end up in the end looking something like this. So a couple of little tips on this. Unlike if you're doing, a normal open house, you don't need to be there for 2, 3, 4 hours. This is traditionally a 20 to 30 minute time period. So what we're usually seeing is 20 to 30 minutes that people can be on there live asking questions. And then secondarily, what we're finding is that people are actually having better luck running these in the middle of the week. Unlike a physical open house where you're trying to catch people out and about running around, we're trying to catch people stuck at home on their computers, which right now we're seeing the behaviors of consumers and people looking is they're home working and searching around during the week. During the weekends, they're finding times to escape their homes, go do yard work, do projects, get out and do a hike, do anything they can just to get out of the house for a little while. But they can't physically tour the house, so we're scheduling these oftentimes during the week. Now, once you've built that thing out, there's a couple of steps that we want to take in order to really maximize the reach and the effect of this event. The first thing we want to do is we want to invite buyers, potentially other agents in the office, potentially other agents who may have buyers. So that can be done through reverse prospecting. And then obviously any leads that have expressed any sort of interest in this property before. And there's a couple of reasons we want to invite people before we start really pushing out the advertising. And that is because we want there to be a group of individuals associated with that event that are either saying that they're going or they're interested. So this could even be friends and family that won't physically or virtually attend, but they're just saying they're going. And really what we're looking for is that social proof that this is a legit event and other people will be attending. It's kind of like you never want to be the first one to a party, right? Everybody shows up just a couple of minutes late, so they don't have to be the only guy standing there, all by yourself. Well, this is the same thing. Nobody wants to be the only one attending an event. So if you invite people and make it look like others are attending, it will add credibility, and it will get people that don't necessarily know you to be more willing to then jump in and say, yep, I will attend and see this open house. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to create advertising. And so inside of the event, it almost immediately pops up a window that will say, would you like to boost this event? Otherwise, you just go to the event and you say boost post or boost event. And one thing that's really important with this is there have been a lot of changes inside of the Facebook ads environment, really since the beginning of the year, but they've really been ramping up since about February or March. And one of the main things is you have to click special ad category if it has anything to do with housing. So you toggle the little switch and then you say add category housing, and this is what will allow us to add or run this ad. If you don't do this, your ad's going to get rejected. And so that's the first step, is making sure that's selected. Now, when you select this, there are going to be some things that change, like the types of interests or ways that you can target people. Some of those things are just hidden. Also, unlike before where we used to go through and really hone in within a mile of that property, now you have to go a minimum of a 15-mile radius, which, as you can see on the screen, is really a good chunk of the entire Portland metro area. Now, you can make this bigger. If it's a house on the west side, I might focus it more and say like Beaverton. Lake Oswego basically centers it in the entire Portland metro area. You know, if you're going to be working more down south, you may use like Tualatin, or you may use even Wilsonville, so you can get down even toward like Woodburn. And if you're on the east side, a lot of times we'll do Happy Valley, but that'll just kind of like shift this circle around in order to make sure that you're reaching the people that would be, you know, willing to then check out that house or potentially move there. Now, once we've decided, okay, this is the area we want to target, we want to look at things that are indicative of potentially buying a house. And so with this, you know, usually the things we look at are interests that indicate they've been searching or looking at properties. So Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com. In here, I put first-time homebuyer grant. The reason I put that in there in this is if it's a lower priced home, that could be something that is beneficial. Now, if it's a higher priced home, I probably wouldn't put something like that in there. Another one that we've been using quite a bit lately is mortgage calculator, because if people are on a mortgage calculator site or they're checking out mortgage rates or things like that, that means they're either looking to refinance or they're trying to see what they can afford. So that's another detailed targeting interest that we would put in there. You can add more in here. What we found is once you start adding, you know, more of these, then the number of people start to just really overlap and the audience doesn't really get any bigger. So this is a great place to start if we're trying to find potential buyers. Now, once we've decided, all right, we've got our event built out, we've got our audience selected, we've invited everyone. All right, now how are we going to run this on the day of the event? And there's really two ways you can do it. One is just going live inside of Facebook, or two, you can use Zoom in order to make it a little more collaborative. And just a quick reason on why you'd use one versus the other is if you use Facebook Live, that's going to be you speaking out to the people inside of that event, but them not really being able to ask any questions or have conversations back. What they will be able to do is comment, and you can monitor the comments and try to reply. But oftentimes you miss those and have to come back to those. Now with Zoom, Zoom allows you to then have conversations with all of the people that then jump into that event. So the easiest way I can describe this is if you want to be able to let's say you walk into a room and you want to be able to stand up at the pedestal and tell everybody how great this house is and why, you'd use Facebook Live. If you want to go in there and you want it to be more like a conference room where you're like, all right, I'd like everybody to be able to ask their questions and talk to me, then you'd probably want to use Zoom. So if you want to go live and you're wanting to use Facebook for this, all you need to do is you go inside of your event. And so with this event, you're going to see where it says post or create post. And then inside of that, you can see the three little dots next to that check-in. And what will happen is there will be a little menu that pops up like you see on the bottom right. Well, that live video button that you see, which is the, you know, on the right side there, third down, when you click on that, that will immediately fire up your video and it'll be live for you. Now, the good part about this is it will notify the people inside of that event that you have now gone live. So you can start speaking, it will prompt them, it'll show a little notification on their Facebook app, or if they're in Facebook, on Facebook. And the other thing it will do is once you've finished and it's created the recording, that recording will then live inside of that event so they can go back and watch it. And it'll also notify them inside of their Facebook notifications that you did go live and that the recording is there. So it really does give a little more juice than just uploading, say, a photo or video. And so it's a good way to get more people's attention that are associated with that event. Now, the other way is to go through and use Zoom. And Zoom actually works with Facebook. But there are a couple of things that are really important. Number one, it doesn't work with the free account. So you do have to use the upgraded version. So it's going to cost you roughly $15 a month in order to upgrade to the next version of Zoom. Now, there are a lot of other features that come with that, namely longer event time. You can go up to 24 hours. That's a crazy long Zoom meeting, so I don't know what you'd actually talk about for 24 hours. It allows you to have more attendees, and there are other features as well, but the big one is it allows live streaming. And in order to turn this on, what you have to do is, it's not going to be in the app. You're going to have to go to the actual website, so zoom.us, and then go into your account in your settings, and then down toward the bottom, you're going to see this little thing right here that says allow live streaming meetings. And you're going to have to toggle that switch on. And depending on how you're going to use it, I use Facebook and I do have my YouTube channel. So I check both of those. So once you have that set up, now we can use Facebook Live as a way to actually do these virtual open houses inside of your event. So once you do that, then you fire up your Zoom meeting, just like you would if you're going to be talking to, a client, or whether you're going to be doing an office meeting, or, however else you're using Zoom right now. But then under the little menu where it says more, you'll notice there on the bottom right where it'll allow me to then go live. So I'm going to be going live on Facebook. So I click live on Facebook. And what you're going to see is it's going to say, all right, where do you want to post this live video? And by default, it's going to say sharing on your timeline, which your timeline is your personal profile sending out to your friends. However, if you notice the little drop-down menu, the option, the fourth one down is share in an event, which is what we would want to do. So you would just click share in an event. It would bring up the events you have, and most likely there would only be the one on there unless you're doing multiple open houses. So you would share inside of that event, and that will pop up and it will go live inside of that event. And just like going Facebook Live, it will notify the people and it will start that recording. So a few pro tips here is, if you're really wanting to maximize the reach prior to and during this actual recording, the first thing that we want to do is once you've built out the event, you're going to see something, like this, where you can actually see, all the details of the event, who's going, who's a maybe, the people that are invited, etc. Now, with that, if you notice down at the bottom, it says add a post. So one of the things that you can do to keep this event popping up in the people who are either going or interested, the maybes feed, is add something in there daily. So it can be an update on the time. It can be a photo of a certain feature of the house. It can be a walkthrough of a specific room. It could even be something like posting your Matterport or Astra Room video. So it could be something where you're combining the 24/7 open house with the live open house. But really the key is we want conversations to be happening inside of this event. The other thing that's important is, if people are asking, you want to monitor this, because if there are people asking questions, you want to reply back to those questions inside of the event. So there is another piece of this where you have to be somewhat active in replying back to people. The next thing is, if you're going to be touring a house and you're going to be walking through the different rooms, I know it was mentioned a little bit earlier about vacant houses. This is especially true in vacant houses. Sometimes it will sound echoey or distant if you don't have some sort of a microphone or using earbuds. And I know both Androids, like if you use the Samsung or an iPhone, the earbuds do a fantastic job. So whether it be AirPods or earbuds or their equivalent, this will allow you to, number one, hear questions a little easier if people are asking you questions. But secondly, it'll give a much higher sound quality for them to be able to hear you. I actually invested in this microphone here, the Shure, MV88, I believe is the model number. And what this does is it allows you just to plug the microphone into your iPhone. This is an iPhone one. And with that, you can actually narrow the range of the sound. So let's say, for example, I wanted to go outside and tell you a little bit about the exterior of the property, but there's a road behind or there's actual noise going on in the background. You can really rein in the degree that the microphone is listening or picking up sound to where you can get rid of a lot of that background noise. So something like that can work, or you can just have something like a lapel mic. But regardless, higher sound quality and having some sort of a microphone definitely adds to the value of the open house. The next thing that I would really suggest is if you're going to be doing a lot of virtual walkthroughs and a lot of the virtual tours, even with your clients, I would use a gimbal. And also, I would even recommend using the phone, as you see here, in landscape mode. The landscape mode will allow people that are on computers to see that easier. And on top of that, what it'll do is it'll make it to where if they turn it sideways, they'll get more detail in case they're looking on their phone or their iPad or something along those lines. But these gimbals, I suggest the DJI Osmo. So just the letters D, J is in Jack in the Box, I, and it's called the Osmo. Right now you can get them on sale for about 90 bucks, I want to say. But what this does is it means you can be walking around and kind of bouncing up and down, and it will create this steady picture to where you're not making your people seasick. You know, it'll give a very clear picture. You can pan around the room and it will keep it at a steady pace, and it gives a much better really environment for the people to then see that property. And so if you're going to be doing this a lot, it really does add to the quality of that video. So I'd recommend getting a gimbal as well. And so, you know, with this, if you have the gimbal, you have the great sound, you're going to get a lot of people that will get a great experience, even to the point where you can now take this video and email it out later. You can post it on maybe your Facebook page or your Facebook profile, and it becomes something that's very usable. One last thing with the gimbal is if you do have somebody you're, say, co-listing with, or a real estate partner, or, you know, even a lender you're doing open houses with, having a secondary person following you around can actually help give a little perspective too. So sometimes having somebody hold the phone and somebody doing the narration and the tour can also really add to the event. But with all of that, you know, those are really our top features, the top things that we're seeing. Once again, this is me, Aaron Stelle. I will post a replay for all of this on my modernDayAgent.com/Aaron Stelle. So with that, I'll ask, are there any questions? You guys have anything that you need a little more clarification on?